my tardiness, but I just want to thank everyone for joining my session today. And I just want to make sure everyone can see my presentation. Yep. Okay. All right, awesome. So today's session is around annual planning for employee resource groups. So just to go ahead and get started, today's agenda is going to be very jam-packed. So I'm going to give you a lot of information, but don't worry, we'll have time for Q&A. And if I don't get to everyone's questions, I will be available. You can contact me because I'm here to support you. So we're going to be talking about what annual planning is for employee resource groups, assessment alignment, strategic planning, resources and support, accountability evaluations, the benefits, concluding, and then going to Q&A. This is going to be an interactive webinar, so I will have questions and polls that I'm putting out to you. So don't think you're just going to listen to me talk. I will be asking you guys to really be participants in creating a very robust and strategic annual plan for your ERGs. So moving along to who I am and why you should listen to me. So again, my name is Sharina Marshall. I am founder of Visionary Development Consulting. I am a global ERG strategist and DEI consultant, and I specialize in ERG program management. And why is that important to me? Well, as a former global ERG leader with a background in program and project management, there was a huge disconnect between the ERGs at the organization that I was with and the organization. The organization didn't know what we were doing. The ERGs were just kind of flailing. So I put together documentation, processes, and pretty much a program to make it really robust, not just for the ERG and their members, but also the organization. Because at the end of the day, these are corporations or companies that we work for, and they need to see the benefits of having this outside of the, it's good or nice to have to check a box. So moving on to our first poll, and 1 second while I pull up that poll question for you guys. Is it clear whether the ERG program goals align with your company's overall strategic goals, or is that alignment uncertain? So I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to answer that poll, and I'll do my little music. Do, 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 do. Do 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 boom boom. And I'm gonna do this every time, so yes, you will be entertained. So far, 77% of you have participated, and you are falling a little bit in the uncertainty space. So some of you do have crystal clear alignment, which is great, but the majority of you are saying that it is uncertain. So when you're looking at that uncertainty, you have to kind of ask yourself, like, what does that mean, and how does that impact the ERG program and the organization as a whole? So when we think about annual planning and what that means, we need to take into account that annual planning and budgeting for your ERG groups are not the same thing. A lot of people go into the budget phase of quote unquote planning for the ERGs, thinking about, well, what's the budget that I have? What's the budget that we could use? How can I get more budget? And it's really around budget. Whereas when you think about annual planning for your ERGs, it really should be strategic. It should set the clear objectives, strategies, and actions for the upcoming year. It is a deliberate and systematic approach that will allow you to align the ERG program to the organization business outcomes, OKRs, or KPIs. It is your goal to make sure that the organization sees the true benefit of having this ERG program and how it directly impacts not just its members, but also the employees of the organization as a whole and the organization business objectives, missions, and goals. When you think about the importance of it, it is around, again, aligning to the organization's goals. It is demonstrating the value of the ERG program. It is also taking into account a strategic focus. When you think about your ERGs, you should think about how you can strategically impact the organization business goals. You can't impact everything, and you should not be required to impact everything. But as a robust ERG program, there are certain impacts that you can make within the organization, and those should be your strategic focus. It also helps you with resource allocation. It's not just enough to say, hey, we need this. You actually need to analyze the resources that are required to make this plan, to implement this plan, to get this goal, to get this initiative, to have all of this kind of fruition. And when you have a robust strategic plan, you're able to outline the resources that are needed. And then it also reinforces accountability. When people understand that the plan is connected to the organization outcomes, which should be connected to leaders themselves, they are more inclined to support it. And so you bring in that accountability standpoint because you need their participation and support in order to get to your ERG program goals. And it also allows you to monitor progress. When you have these goals and these metrics, you can monitor the progress of your plan along the way. So that way you can see how you're measuring to your goals, if you are off, if you need to make adjustments, and then if there are adjustments to the business or the organization goals, you're able to give your plan some flexibility to adjust with those differing or changing business objectives. And then that again, that goes to the adaptability. When you have a plan, you're not stuck saying, oh, well, we can't do this. Your plan should be flexible enough to say, okay, well, we need to change this or we need to change that, or even to say, hey, because of the significant shift in the business outcomes, we're not able to meet our metrics, or we're not able to support the organization in this way, so we need to shift to something else. Having this plan is really key to, one, giving you that roadmap for success, but also showing the organization as a whole how you strategically impact it. Now we have another poll question. And again, I told you this is going to be interactive, so don't be doing anything else. Stay focused on this. So when it comes to leadership, has there been a demonstrated buy-in from executive leadership, or is this something that still needs to be worked on? I have found through my clients and talking to other ERG leaders that the buy-in is really a sticking point where they kind of like, I don't know how to actually solidify this, or they're not really giving me the support that is needed. So annual planning is one way to help solidify that. So I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. Do 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 na 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 do 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 boom boom. And don't forget, when questions come up, put in the Q&A so that we can make sure we get to it at the end of the presentation. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. So it was kind of close. So a couple of you, it's kind of close. So it's about 45 to 55. So I would say, that's a relatively good mix of having that buy-in. And then also what you want to think about when it comes to leadership buy-in is what that actually means to you. Is it the resources? Is it funding? Is it accountability? Is it consequences if the accountability is not met? So make sure when you think about leadership buy-in, you have a clear definition of what that looks like for your ERG program, because it can be different for different organizations. So when we think about leadership and buy-in, we want to think about assessment and alignment. So when it comes to assessment, you need to actually look at how your ERG program is aligned with the organization. Is it meeting the needs of not just its members, but also team members at large and the organization as a whole? So if you have just started your ERG program or it's been around for a while, you definitely want to take stock of how your ERG program is aligning to the organization. And then this is one good way to get buy-in, because if you were able to do that assessment and see where you are aligned versus where you're not aligned, then you can talk to leadership about how they can help with that true alignment. And this gets that buy-in because they are connected to that alignment. It's not just some ethereal thing where they're like, oh yeah, we have ERGs, but they are understanding how the ERG program, its members, and then the team members of the organization at large are connected to that ERG program. And then they want to see it be successful because you are, again, aligning the program to the organization needs, business outcomes, OKRs, and KPIs. So that does help solidify alignment. And then through that assessment, you definitely want to get feedback. You want to get feedback not just from your ERG leaders and its members, but also the organization team members as a whole. Ask people that are not a part of the ERGs, be it members or allies, like, do they see the benefit of ERG programs? Do they not? How have they been impacted by it? And then also talk to leadership about their feedback around the ERG program. This will help you understand where your gaps are and how you can truly align to the organization, to the team members at large, as well as your ERG leaders and members. So assessment and alignment is truly key in order to make not just a robust annual plan, but also a robust ERG program. And when we think about a robust ERG program and annual plan, we need to be very strategic about it. So when I talk about strategic planning, I'm talking about it from the standpoint of strategic focus areas for your ERG program. So when it comes to your annual planning, when you're looking at your organization, business outcomes, OKRs, or KPIs, you want to take into account where you can be most strategic, meaning that if they are 4 business outcomes the organization is looking for, where can you be the most impactful? Where can you see that return on the investment that you're going to put in from a program plan perspective, but also where can you show that direct impact? So let's, for instance, take the organization wants to increase diverse leadership. Having an understanding of what that looks like. In a generic sense, diverse leadership can be anything, but you want to get quantifiable numbers around it, or if the organization can give you that, create some quantifiable metrics for yourself that are realistic, attainable, and shows direct impact. You can't do everything, nor should you. So picking 1 or 2 strategic areas of focus that you know you can directly impact from a program perspective will allow for you to create a plan that, 1, will show impact, but also be able to allow for you to have measurable metrics that you can share with not just leadership, but the organization as a whole. So when you're thinking about those measurable goals, you want to create an action plan. And I know I'm saying this before any type of resources or any type of support has been done, but when you do the action plan first to your goals, then you get to see, 1, where the gaps are, be it at resources, be it at actually this is not attainable for us, or impact. So by creating an action plan, you can see where you're going to and what you need to get there. And then that allows for executive endorsement. So when you have that plan and you see where you need support at, be it financial support, be it accountability, sponsorship, responsibilities, you can have a plan to present to leadership and say, hey, these are the strategic areas we're focused on. These are the goals and initiatives we're looking to do. Here are the resources and support that we need in order to get that. So either leadership can be like, yay, this is great, we can do this, or actually we have some conflicting initiatives that will directly impact this, so you might need to shift. When you're thinking about your strategic plan, it is not a set in stone. It is not a you do it once and that's it. You are really starting with a plan, like a high level plan that you want to obtain, and then you're drilling it down based off available resources, executive endorsement and support, and how you can truly implement a plan to make that realistic direct impact from your ERG program to the organization as a whole. Now, we're going to move on to another poll. So this one asks about resources and support. So when you think about resources and support, don't just think about them in the aspect of financial, but think about it in the aspect of based off of the plan you're trying, oops, excuse me, sorry. I need to redo that. I think I hit it too fast. 1 second, I'm gonna relaunch that poll. Okay. So you guys should see the poll. Think about it in terms of, let's say you need to build out a SharePoint drive. Resources needed are IT support. You need to contact IT. How long is this going to take? What are the resources from IT? Do they have conflicting initiatives or projects they have to do? When could this get done? Having that understanding of the resources that are required is going to help you adjust the plan, and then also put in flexibility for the plan. Because as we know, working in organizations, projects change, initiatives change, priorities change. So you have to be able to have a plan that's flexible enough to adjust if something veers off the rails, or you just really can't implement to the plan the way you would like to. So I'm gonna give you guys another second to do that, but it looks like a lot of you guys need increased investment. So that is something that everybody pretty much shares, like they need increased investment. And then what does that look like from the standpoint of your plan when you think about the resources and support that you need? So when it comes to resources and support, having that plan that you put together is going to be your North Star, because you're going to be able from that plan to see what's your current resource allocation from a budgeting standpoint. Do you have the same budget? Do you have less budget? And so with that, if you don't know, I always tell my clients and organizations, create a base case, best case, and worst case scenario when it comes to resources. So base case, the support and resources you have does not change. What outcome can you have against your plan if you just stay the same with the resources and support you have? Best case, you get 10% more resources and support, meaning 10% increase in refund, in funding. You have access to IT support, so on and so forth against your plan. What do those outcomes look like? If you get a decrease, let's say your budget is slashed, you cannot get any IT support. You can't do anything to your plan because you don't have the resources and support you need. What does that outcome look like? When you frame your plan against base case, best case, and worst case, you can show the business case for why you need resources and support. It's not just enough to say, hey, we need this because we're trying to do this. You need to show the outcome of if you have it, if you don't have it, or if you're going to have less of it. That shows the business case. That shows the executive team, that shows leadership, meaning middle managers, why they need to be invested in supporting this plan and need to give you the resources and support in order to implement the plan to success. And then again, when you do those base, best, and worst cases, you can also identify the business gaps when you do that. So you can see, hey, we don't have IT support. If we don't have IT support for this, we can't execute the plan to make this impact. Or we don't have accountability, meaning that people say they're going to do it, but then they don't support it. This is going to impact it this way. That always helps you to understand where you are. And then when you have those things that change, again, priorities, access to resources, you can adjust the plan, because you can say, hey, we're at the base case, we're losing resources. So now we're going to go down to the worst case. How do we need to adjust this plan? And then think about it in the timeline as well. So going back to the example, if you need IT resources to create a SharePoint drive, you know you can't have access to them until Q2. And then in Q1, they're like, hey, we have this initiative came up, priority. We're not going to be able to do this until Q4. Okay, so that directly impacts your plan. So do you need to not do that initiative, or do you need to adjust it somehow? Creating that timeline, again, gives you a view of resource allocation and allows for adjustment. So you're following up with the resources, making sure that you're on their timeline, making sure you're on your timeline, and then you're able to adapt when things come up. So just keep in mind when you're thinking about resources and support, that base case, best case, and worst case scenario. So now I have another poll. I told you guys this is interactive, so you got to keep up. And I see the questions are coming in, so I do believe I'm going to be able to get to them, so just hold tight. So when it comes to communication and engagement, regarding your ERG initiatives, are they consistent and effective, or is there room for improvement? I feel like this should be almost everyone saying that there's room for improvement. because I feel like communication and engagement, there's always room for improvement. No matter how well we think we're doing, we can always improve, because we're getting that feedback based off of what we've done. And so we make sure that we're staying consistent with the needs of not just our ERG members, but also the organization as a whole. So I see that is coming in, is looking like it is going for room of improvement. 1 second. All right. So I'm going to share the results. It is 94%. There's room for improvement. So that's kind of how I figured. Like I said, there's always room for improvement no matter what we do, because communication and engagement is constantly evolving. So we always can take that time to look at ways and areas to improve our communication. So when we think about communication and engagement, it comes down to accountability and evaluation. When you have the strategic annual plan, you also have to make sure that you are clearly defining the roles and responsibilities of individuals, teams, departments in the success of the plan. And this is one place where you can bring in your ERG leaders as a program manager and help support that. And this also lends to their professional development, because not only are they leading these teams, but now they're also leading annual planning. So from the standpoint of going back to that example of increasing diverse leadership, internally, you have a pool of diverse leaders that you are not only helping them develop their leadership skills of team members, but also their leadership skills around annual planning, budgeting, communication, and so on and so forth. So with having a strategic plan and roles and responsibilities, it's not just about the plan, it's also about that accountability for individuals involved. It's also about that professional development of your leadership team within your ERGs. It's also about the executive sponsors sponsoring those ERGs leaders, making sure that their leadership development is getting honed so that they can be in the pipeline for those promotions. So the ERG annual plan is not just the plan itself, but is the expansion of the support of its team members, its leaders, as well as the organization. And when you have those clearly defined responsibilities, the accountability goes way up, because people don't live in this gray area of, well, yeah, I know you have a plan and this is what you're trying to do, so, I'm not in the way. If you're not supporting the plan, you are in the way. So everyone needs to understand their place within the plan and their responsibilities for the success of the plan. And then you have to create a communications plan. It's not just enough to say, okay, well, we're going to send this out. We're going to let leadership know. You should have a formalized meeting with leadership presenting your annual plan, what you're trying to do to make sure you get that buy-in, accountability, and support and sponsorship. But you also need to be communicating to the organization as a whole. This is the plan that you're doing. These are the initiatives, because one thing that can cut you off is middle management. And that means everybody below the C-suite, but above individual contributors. If they don't see and understand the impact of them not supporting this plan, meaning that they're giving team members time to do what they need to do, they're supporting the initiatives, they're talking about the plan, it can really stale your plan. So you want to make sure you have a very robust communication plan for executive leaders, middle management, team members at large, as well as your ERG leaders that they can disseminate to the team members. And then you need to communicate often and make sure whatever updates to the plan are sent out. If there are any roadblocks, you need to address those and have a plan to communicate those so that you can garner more support and raise that accountability. So having a very robust communication plan is really key to the success of your annual plan. And then you have to set a monitoring cadence. So you have to be constantly looking at the plan and where you are to the plan, meaning that you are looking at it quarterly or monthly, depending on how your plan is rolled out in your timeline. But you definitely need to be looking at where you are against your plan, and that is part of your communication cadence as well, so that you can let everybody know this is where we are to the plan, this is the support we need, this is the adjustments that we're doing. Everyone needs to be updated and communicated to, so that they know, one, this plan is important. It's not just something that's done, it's off by the wayside or an afterthought. This is an active participation in the success of the organization, its team members, and the ERG program as a whole. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't emphasize that enough. This is where you're going to have that accountability. And this is where you also talk about the consequences of not being accountable for lack of support for your plan. And so we're going to move on to the benefits of annual planning. Now, I know I threw a lot at you, and you probably have an idea of the benefits, but truly understanding the benefits of a strategic annual plan for your ERGs comes down to having that strategic clarity, where your focus areas are, having that alignment with the organization, making sure you have efficient resource allocation, making sure that there's accountability and ownership in the plan, having measurable impact so you can show that ROI to not just leadership, but the organization as a whole, having adaptability and flexibility because you have a plan that has base, best, and worst cases, having that enhanced communication so everyone knows that they are a part of the plan, and that increases engagement from not just participants in the ERG program, but also individual contributors, middle management, and the executive team. And this also allows for continuous learning. When you have your ERG leaders involved in annual planning, that can be part of their professional development for them to get those promotions, because they understand how things work and how to be leaders when it comes to annual planning and presenting to executive teams. And then this can help with a positive workplace output. Everyone is aware of the output that is going on. They know that, hey, this is going to benefit not just the ERG program, but team members of the organization as a whole and the organization at large. When you have a robust program that everybody is aware of, you are increasing the brand of your company. You are making sure that people know you as an organization, as an ERG program, are putting your foot to the pavement, your foot to the fire, and you're not just talking. One of the things they talked about in the last presentation was about Gen Z workers. And 48% of Gen Z workers will be part of the global majority, either ethnically or racially. 51% of them will be women, 21% of them will be part of the LGBTQI plus community, and 15% of them will have some sort of disability. This is the job marketplace moving forward, and they want to make sure they feel seen, heard, and valued. And there is no better way to do that than having an executable annual plan that shows just how the ERGs are going to make everyone in the organization feel valued, seen, and heard, and positively contribute to the organization's bottom line. The benefits of strategic annual planning are so great that it is worth the investment in time, effort, energy, and possibly funding to make it what it should be. It's not just budgeting, it's a strategic plan for the success, longevity, and sustainability of your ERG program. Woo, I know that was a lot. So I'm going to ask one last question of you guys. Do you have a better understanding of around strategic annual planning outside of ERG budget? So I'll do my do 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 do. All right, it looks like makes sense to you, but some of you still have questions. That is perfectly fine. So I understand. I threw a lot at you, so I get it. But with that, I want to go ahead and round this up and just talk about a couple of key takeaways. Key takeaways are assessment and alignment, You have to make sure that you're looking at your ERG program as a whole, assessing where some gaps are, making sure it's aligned to the organization. And if there is not true alignment, what does that look like? Strategic planning, making sure you have those strategic areas of focus, what that looks like, and how you can truly implement to impact and not just implement to do something. Resources and support, understanding that base, best, and worst case based off of the resources and support that you have allocated, accountability and evaluation. You're going to have to monitor, you're going to have to hold people accountable, you're going to have to measure, and you're going to have to present. So when it comes to ERG strategic planning, it is a lot, but it is well worth it because it is so much more impactful, not just to your ERG program, but the organization as a whole. ERGs are so important to helping team members that are underrepresented in the community or in the organization to feel seen, heard, and valued. It gives them the opportunity to have the career of their dreams, to progress in a community where they feel valued. And you also help to foster psychological safety within the organization. So I really encourage you all, if you have not set up your annual planning for your ERGs, to do it now or do it as soon as you can so that you can get the resources support you need, and then you can have a very robust plan that you can, implement next year. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. It is so much in the chat, so I have no idea what was said in the chat.
We do have some Q&As in the Q&A. Would you like me to read those off to you, Sharita?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, so the first one is annual planning summarized to upper management each year?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You sounded a little low to me. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Is annual planning summarized to upper management each year?
Yes, it should be. So when you go through your planning phase, however you have that created, you should present to leadership. And when you present to leadership, you should have an executive summary. You should have what your plan is, meaning your goals and objectives, how they tie to the organization. You should have resources and support required and needed. You should have that base, best, and worst case scenario in there. And then you should have what you need from leadership in order to support those key initiatives. So this is something that I tell my clients and organizations, like, make sure you schedule this. And even if you have to schedule it at the beginning of the year to get leadership to get on their calendar, because everybody knows, leadership is always busy, make sure you do that, because it's very important that they, one, understand what the plan is, and then the support that's needed. And if there are going to be any changes that maybe you didn't know about, they're able to tell you at that point so you can adjust the plan. But you should present every year. Yes.
Okay, another question is how to effectively share the annual plan with your org so that everyone knows exactly what's going on.
Okay, so the way that I work with customers, or my clients, I should say, is that when we go through annual planning and I help them create their leadership plan, what we do is that we drill down that leadership presentation to more high level for if they're going to do it to middle management, or if they're going to do it to their leaders and the organization as a whole. So essentially, when you have that leadership presentation, you're just going to make it more high level for the organization, so they don't need to know resources or anything like that. So you just want to say, hey, here's our goals and initiatives as the ERG plan. Here's the impact. These are the resources that will be utilized, if you want to share that, if you want people to know. But you really want to put in how to support the plan as an individual contributor when you're presenting to the organization as a whole. If you have events, or if you have initiatives that require certain departments, things like that. So you really want to show, here's what we're trying to do, this is the support we need, and here's the impact that we're going to have based off of this plan. So always starting with the overall leadership plan, and then kind of drilling that down to meet the audience that you're talking to.
Well, I have, there are two questions here. I think we can roll into one. And it's, would you recommend including ERG members in annual strategic planning? And in general, how do we ask for insight into organizational goals?
So yes. So I always say start with the ERG leaders to have them to come into the plan. And then they always can open it up to members as well, because your ERG members are going to be a mix of different team members, so they can be on different departments that you're actually going to be utilizing for your plan. So when you're doing that, from that presentation to, let's just say, your ERG leaders, then you can put in like, hey, these are some of the needs that we have. Open it up to your members to participate in X, Y, and Z. The more participation from the organization as a whole, the more likely the plan is going to come to success, because people are going to be invested in their part of it being successful. So you definitely want to make sure that you open it up. It doesn't need to be like, everything doesn't need to be open up. It could be open up for like, hey, we need people to help with the communication plan or something like that. So you need to figure out what support you're going to be asking for, so that the ERG leaders know what they're going to be communicating to members, if they're doing it or if you as a program manager is doing it. And then the second part, can you repeat that part?
Yeah, how to ask for insight into organizational goals.
Okay. So if you do not have purview as a program manager into the organization goals, then definitely ask someone in leadership, if it's like a director, VP, what the organization goals are. Or if you have access to the executive team, ask what they are, and then explain, what you're asking for. If they 9 times out of 10, they'll give it to you. If they don't have it finalized, then they'll give you an idea and say like, hey, this is what we're looking at, it's not finalized. Or if they just don't know at the time you're asking, then they don't know, and you kind of have to gauge either based off of last year's goals. You can create a plan around that and adjust it. Or if you want to wait until they give you that information, you can as well. You don't want to wait too late, but typically you should be close enough to someone to find out, particularly with your executive sponsors. This is a way for them to really this should be part of their responsibility as an executive sponsor, to be able to share with you the organization's either business outcomes, OKRs, or KPIs with you every year, so you can make that a part of your plan. But definitely you should have access to somebody to ask them what the organization's next year, or if it's going to be like a 5-year plan or something, what that looks like, so that you can create a plan.
It's great. It's great. Another question is, someone's company just went through layoffs, and they're going through a reorganization. How do they plan for the year when morale is low and they need to rebuild trust with leadership?
That's your plan, is to rebuild trust and increase employee morale, engagement, and job satisfaction. That's your plan in of itself. And so that's what you work towards. And then what does that look like? That's where you do that feedback and asking team members, not just ERG members, but team members of the organization, like, what does that look like? How can we support you? What do you need from the organization to feel valued, seen, and heard, to feel, to have that trust instilled in the organization, either as an individual contributor or a leader? That is your plan, and that's what you work towards. And when you do that feedback, that's where you get the needs of the team members. And then that's when you can go to leadership with the plan, like, hey, this is what the team members that are still here, this is what they need to feel seen, heard, valued, to make sure that they're producing at the best levels they can, giving the reorganization of the company, making sure that their efforts are not in vain, and so on and so forth. If it's for instance, if the employees say they need more communication, then that's part of your plan, saying like, hey, leadership, we as the ERG program want to make sure that all team members, not just the ERG members, want to have constant communication around X, Y, and Z. That is your plan, and that's what you move towards. And then when you're talking to leadership about it, you're talking to it from a standpoint of, this is how we help you internally. This is how we help with morale. This is how we help with engagement. This is how we help with keeping the team members that we have staying here with us and not, ready to jump ship for, whatever reason. Not to say that it won't happen, but you have a plan to help mitigate that risk.
Sorry, there's a lot going on, and you're doing a really great job.
Oh, thank
Thanks.
you.
Okay. I think buy-in um, is a big one based off of the chat and some of the questions, but a lot of questions surrounding tactics for getting buy-in from other leaders outside of the exec team. One in particular, getting buy-in from a CEO who doesn't see the value in ERGs.
That leadership presentation is what's going to get the buy-in. Because again, when you have this plan and you're able to show the alignment between the program itself, its goals, its initiatives, and what the organization is trying to do, that is what's going to get you buy-in. If they cannot see a direct connect, and I'm talking like directly, like we have this goal to have 70% of our ERG leaders within the leadership development program, which it would increase the diverse pipeline by 50% over the next 12 months. That is that direct connect. That is showing the direct connection. You have to do that in order to have that buy-in, because otherwise it is some ethereal thing that ERGs are doing, that a box is checked, they just exist, but no one knows the direct impact to the organization. You have to show that. It is not optional. I wish it was. I wish it was good enough to say, hey, we need this because this is how people need to feel supported. This is how you serve the represented communities within your organization, and people cared enough for that to be enough, but it's not. You have to show that direct connect, and having an annual plan that you strategically lay out and present to leadership in a way of, this is the base case scenario, this is the worst case scenario, and this is the best case scenario, given the resources that are required to implement this plan to fruition. That is how you get the buy-in. They don't get it unless they see that. They have to see that direct connect.
Okay, we're coming at about time, so I'm gonna just a couple more questions. What we've got multiple questions regarding if you use or recommend any templates for annual planning.
So I have one thing I do have is best practices around annual planning. I have that as a blog post on my website, as well as if you're following me on LinkedIn, that is one of the that's the newsletter I did for last month. But I do have templates that when I work with my customers, I give them the template. So we work through everything that I just showed you, we work through, and they have templates where they're pretty much plugging and playing. So all the resources needed, they're just putting in a document. They have an outline for the leadership presentation. These are all the things that I provide to my clients when I work with them. But there is best practices blog post that I have on LinkedIn, as well as my website. But definitely what I do is have pretty much a planning session where we come in with the assessment already done, and then we're just kind of like plug and playing with all of the templates that I created, because that way it takes all the guesswork out. But I don't have it available outside of working with me, unfortunately. But the best practices is available. But when you work with me, you do get templates where you just put in the information and you kind of just go from there. But I do support you with making sure the presentation is robust, answering pretty much all the questions that can come up, and then kind of getting you ready for the next year with your plan. And then after that, it is just reutilizing the plan based off of the information that you've gathered from the following year and the new business goals.
Okay, and maybe we can end this on a very light note, and perhaps this can help people connect with their ERGs. But Ina Harvey's asking, how do you present so naturally?
Practice. It's been a lot of practice because this is what I've done in my past being an employee. So I always had to present to why stuff should work and why stuff should happen. And I had to present it in a way that made people understand and get it. So it's just practice, honestly. And this is also how I work with my clients too when they get ready to present to leadership. And they're like, they're going to ask so many questions. And I'm like, yes, I know. This is why you don't tell them everything. This is why you put it in the documentation you send to them. You just give them high level stuff. So I work with my clients on that too, because again, when you're dealing with leadership, they just want to know. I'm not going to say that. A lot of them want to know what's in it for them, and they don't really care about anything else. So you want to make it concise and just say like, "Hey, here's what's in it for you. This is how it's going to work." But for those of you who we didn't get to your questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to kind of discuss like questions and what you guys are trying to work on and do. I am here to support you because this is very, very, very dear to me. I believe that everyone should be able to show up as their authentic self and feel safe to work in these corporations. So no one should not have psychological safety at work. And ERGs are the best way to produce communities of psychological safety. So please connect with me. I'll be more than happy to talk with you, and I would love to work with you all to help you create a very robust annual plan. And that's all I got.